Hi guys, how are you doing? I hope you're all enjoying all the activities we have on offer today. Now, before we get into the tutorial, I just want to talk to you a little bit about it first. I filmed this tutorial a few days ago in my garden. Whilst filming, I pretended that the camera was a student of mine and that I was actually in a real lesson with somebody. Because of this, you will hear me say, okay, quite a few times. This is a very normal part of a lesson for me. I am constantly checking my students to make sure that they are following along and that everything is making sense to them. Clarity is extremely important to me, and I want to make sure you are getting everything you can out of a lesson with me. For this tutorial, I stuck very closely to the book and explained it part by part. Therefore, this tutorial is a great addition to the book, and I strongly believe that if you purchase them together, you will get the most out of both products. So for today only, I'm going to make you a very special offer. One which is worth a lot more than you will actually be spending. How much more? Well, let's have a look at the figures. The exposure book retails at $20 Australian. A one-on-one lesson with me retails at $30 Australian per hour. This tutorial is over an hour long, and I am giving it to you completely free. Yes, that's right, this tutorial is completely free for you. The only catch is that you have to buy the exposure book today. So, for $20 Australian, you not only get the book, but you also get this tutorial. But remember, this offer is only valid today. Alright, so that's enough of the sales talk. What you're about to watch is the first 10 minutes of the tutorial on exposure. You get to watch this 10 minutes completely free. You will get to see how I work, how detailed this tutorial really is, and even see the first few pages of the book. So make sure you have a notebook ready, sit back, relax, and enjoy!
Hi guys, so we're here today to go through the exposure book, which you have either purchased or are thinking about purchasing at this moment in time. So before we get started, I just want to make sure that everyone has their camera nearby or handy, just so that you can have a look at things, have a play whilst you're watching this video, and just make sure you're getting everything correct. I'll be using my camera here, and I'll just be explaining to you where certain settings are found on my camera. Now every camera is slightly different, but I can point out they'll be maybe over this side or over this side depending on the make of camera you have. You may have to play around, you may need to get your manual out just to make sure that you get the right settings for everything, and find exactly where they are on your camera. So we're going to start. Let's get started with the book. So I'm going to start just by going through the introduction. Basically, this section just explains what exposure is, the relationship between exposure and light, basically. So I'm just going to read it for you now. Photography is the act of capturing light. Exposure is the term used to measure how much light we are capturing. A correct exposure is when we have used just the right amount of light, not too much light or not too little light, to create a pleasing result. What may be pleasing to one person is not always pleasing to another, and therefore photography, just like every art form, is subjective. Now this is something that is very important to remember, especially when people are giving you constructive criticism on your photos. Just remember that photography is subjective. So one person will like your photo, another person may not. And that doesn't necessarily mean your photo is a bad photo. It just means that it's not something that inspires them or that they find interesting, whereas other people might find it interesting. Like if you got a picture of a cat, maybe there's some people that love cats, and there's also people that don't love cats so much. So the people that love cats would obviously love your photo. The people that don't like cats so much might not like your photo. Alright, so just always keep that in mind when you're doing photography and when you're receiving comments and getting comments on your work. It's always subjective. So just always keep that in mind. Not everybody is going to like your work, but you need to like your work. So as long as you like your work, then you're going in the right direction. So now you'll see we've got some pictures here. We've got 5 pictures. Got very underexposed, slightly underexposed, correctly exposed, slightly overexposed, and very overexposed. Now, all of these pictures, all 5 of these pictures were taken one directly after the other at the same location. And as you can see, the very underexposed picture is pretty much black. You can't see any detail in that picture at all. The very overexposed picture is very bright, so there's too much light in that picture. If you look at the clouds in sort of the right hand side of the picture, that is a good point to compare the pictures on. So in the first picture, the very underexposed picture, you can just see the white of that cloud, but it's very hard. You're not quite sure what you're looking at in that. And then as you go through the pictures, you can see that white gets brighter and brighter and brighter as you go on. And to the point in the very overexposed picture, it is so bright that you can't tell what's going on at all. You can't see the cloud. It's just kind of merging into that sky behind it there. So this is just to explain to you what exposure is, these pictures. So the correctly exposed picture is obviously the one in the middle. And there you can see you've got that cloud. You can see the detail in that cloud. And then if you look in the shadows, so the shadow under the tree, for example, you can still see a little bit of detail there, but you're not losing too much. Okay, so let's continue on. This might sound easy, but light is always changing. The photos on the following page are an example of this. Every one of the 12 photos was taken using exactly the same exposure settings on the camera. The only difference between the photo was the time at which they were taken. They were taken at 5-minute intervals between 17:26 and 18:22 in the evening. The first photo is correctly exposed, and you can see that as time goes on, the images become darker and darker, underexposed. This is because the sun is going down and we are therefore losing light. And so this is actually an experiment which I did in my garden. So as you can see, I literally just took a plant pot, stuck it on the garden table and took some pictures of it. That's all you need to do, just to experiment and play with light. Find an object, it can be anything. I had a random plant pot sitting in the garden, so that's what I chose to use. You can use something, a plate, a bowl, anything in your house, whatever you have, it doesn't matter. You can use a person if you want. You can use your pets, although that could be a little bit difficult. So try and get something that's not moving just to do this experiment at home. If you want, you can even just pause the video now and have a go at it. It's very easy. You just need an hour of time. And as I said, just put an object somewhere, set up your camera to what it says is the right exposure. And we're going to go through how to work all that out later. And just take one picture every 5 minutes without changing any settings and just see what happens. And over the course of an hour, depending on the time of day, if it's in the afternoon, evening, like it was when I did it, at that sunset time, you will get a very drastic change where your picture is at first correctly exposed and the images will get darker and darker as the time goes on because you are losing light. The sun is going down, the light is disappearing. Alright, so I'm not using any artificial lights in these pictures. This is just using sunlight. Alright, so if you were to do this experiment in the morning, so around sunrise time, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever time sun rises where you are, you would get the opposite effect of what I'm showing here. So you would have the first picture would be correctly exposed, and then every picture after that would be getting brighter and brighter and brighter as the sun comes up and you get a little bit more light coming into your pictures. Okay, If you were to do this in the middle of the day, then you again, first picture would be correctly exposed, and you might get a little bit of change, but it won't be as drastic because the sun is up at its highest point in the sky, as opposed to the lower down areas where you lose light and the shadows get bigger much faster when the sun is lower down. Okay, when the sun is up at the top of the sky, it's coming down, it's bright, it's strong. There's not going to be much change in the pictures in the course of an hour during the middle of the day. Okay, obviously if you were to do this experiment at night, that would depend on the moon. So the moon obviously would work in a similar way to the sun. The moon isn't as bright as the sunlight though. And you may also be affected by artificial lights around you. So if you've got lights on in your house, you've got street lights or something, that would also affect it. So this experiment wouldn't work so well at night time. Okay. So literally what I've just explained is said here in the book. If you were to do the same experiment at a different time of day, you would get a different result. For example, in the morning, the images would become brighter, overexposed. In the middle of the day, there would be considerably less change between the images. So hopefully you all understand that point now, and we're ready to move on to the next part of the introduction. So in this book, you will learn what the three main points of exposure are, the limitations, and how to control them. You'll also be showing some tools which can help you to get a correct exposure. So that's exactly what I was just talking about. There are three parts to exposure. So you've got shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Now, at this point, I expect that's sounding a little bit scary, a little bit confusing. You have no idea what any of those terms mean. That's perfectly fine. That's what we're going to be going through in this lesson for you today. Okay. Once you fully understand exposure, you can use it to create different effects in your images, helping your work to stand out and assist in developing your own style. This is ultimately the most important part of learning photography. Yes, so again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about having about photography being objective and getting those critics of your photography that might not necessarily like what you're doing. But what you are doing is still a good photo and you like it. It's a subject that you are interested in, and therefore it is a good photo, even if they don't necessarily like it. Okay, as long as it is correctly exposed, it has the right composition, it's well in focus, the white balance is correct. All of those photography rules, if all of them have been met or broken creatively, then it's a good photo. And that is what you need to keep remembering. Okay, the lessons and techniques in this book are best suited for use with natural light, sunlight, but the basic principles will translate to use with artificial lights such as flash units, indoor lighting. Okay, so why is it important to get a correct exposure? Well, quite simply, if your image is overexposed, too much light, or underexposed, not enough light, then it will be hard for the viewer to see the subject. If your viewer can't see the subject, then what is the point of the photograph? Again, going back to looking at those pictures with the cloud, okay? In the pictures where you can barely see the cloud, that is showing my purpose of this point. You can't see the cloud, so what was the point of the cloud being there, okay? You want, even with these pictures of the flower pot, where it gets so dark that you can't see the flower pot, again, what is the point of that picture? No one can see what's in it. Okay, so this is why you need to get correct exposure.
So, what did you think? Did you enjoy that? Please let me know if you liked it in the comments. Now, if you did enjoy it, and I assume you did if you're still watching, so I just want to remind you of the offer. The offer which is only available today. The offer where you can get to watch the rest of that tutorial for free. Now remember, all you have to do is buy the exposure book. The link is in the comments below. So go click it now and buy the book. Remember, this is a step-by-step walkthrough of the book. The tutorial continues in exactly the same way. I continue to explain every little detail in the book. I give you examples. I talk to you about the photos, about the diagrams, about what equipment you need and how to use it. I even show you on camera where all the buttons are and suggest where those buttons might be on your camera. This tutorial really is as personal as I could make it for you. This is a unique opportunity. I have not seen any other photographers, trainers, educators, anyone give anything like this away for free. So what are you waiting for? Why are you still watching this video? Go click the link. Go buy the book. I am not kidding when I say this offer is only available today. You can't come to me tomorrow and say, hey, remember that offer? I'll probably just end up laughing at you. Alright, okay, I'm not really that mean, but I'm not a fan of stupid people. And, well, you would have to be stupid to miss out on an offer like this. Now, we're in the middle of a COVID lockdown. So, I've got a question for you. What are you doing this afternoon? What are your plans for tomorrow? I know you have time to read this book and watch the tutorial. So stop procrastinating and click the link. Buy the book. Click the link. Buy the book.